Hey everybody, my research project was on the Americanization of George Washington. I thought it was interesting how a young colonial from Virginia, his greatest ambition as a young man was to become a officer in the Royal Army, and he ended up being their biggest adversary. He became the iconic figure that we know today, our first president, the leader of our army during our Great Revolution. Um, so I studied George Washington from his youth until the first Continental Congress when they met in Philadelphia. And basically, what I found out was that no matter what Washington did, the British were never going to give him a commission in their army because he was a colonial. Washington took three different trips to the Ohio Valley region. The first one was pretty successful. He found out the intention of the French. And the second journey he made to the Ohio Valley region was not successful. That was the Fort Necessity issue, where he really didn't have any. He was a citizen soldier. He wasn't a professional soldier. He had some issues controlling his men and ended up signing the Articles of Capitulation, basically saying that he assassinated a French diplomat. And that brought great discredit. Started the French and Indian War, which also turned out to be the 7 Years' War over in Europe. And that was Washington. He ended up coming back some years later with General Braddock as an unpaid aide. Ended up saving the British colony right outside of Pittsburgh when they were attacked by the French and the Indians. Basically, the Americans were better suited at fighting, hiding behind trees, and using different tactics than the British were. The British tactics wouldn't work against the Indians' light infantry. It was pretty much a massacre. In fact, General Braddock was mortally wounded, and he handed command over to Washington, who organized the retreat and got everybody back. And the whole time, Washington was sick with dysentery. Even after that, Washington went up to Boston and asked the new commander-in-chief if he could get a commission in the military. That's what he wanted. They turned him down. After that, Washington pretty much, he still wanted the same ambition of elevating his status and gaining wealth and gaining fame for his family name. And he could no longer do that by means of the British military. So then he ended up marrying Martha, gaining the estate and gaining some wealth, and became a statesman and a politician in Virginia. Was in the House of Burgess for about 15 years to 1775. And then the British started taxing that wealth he was making, and then they started dissolving his foundation of power, which was the House of Burgess. And once that happened, Washington had no other recourse but to join the rebels. And when he showed up in the Continental Congress, their first meeting, he wore military uniform. His intentions were from the beginning to lead them against the British. But his goal never changed. It was always to further the Washington name, to gain wealth, and to gain fame. So my argument was basically that he was never really loyal to the British, that he was basically always an American even before we knew what that was. He was doing his thing, trying to further his name, trying to make his own way in the world from very hard beginnings, especially when his father died. But that was my research project. I enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe.